Well, an 18-year career in games journalism, also being involved in, it sounds like two simultaneous game development projects, one local
Yeah.
studio and
Like,
another
how much time
small
Yeah,
do you
studio.
have? And then
don't
you're going
ever
to
do
to
that.
you.
She's like, Larry, I'll stop you there. Here's my advice.
Yeah,
Don't.
don't ever do that.
Well, the
Yeah.
question coming from me though, as the designer in the group, is I guess when did you see that transition in your life occur? When were you always interested in game development, or was that because you were like doing the journalism? You're like, oh, actually, I want to try my hand at it now. Tell me like the story of you
Mhm.
going into game development yourself and like how great it's been for you. And yes, that is a loaded question because I know that
Okay.
there's been benefit. Yeah.
Uh, so I've always been writing fiction on the
Okay.
side. I mean, that was my first love was, the goal to be a novelist. I mean, what journalists? I mean, yeah, if you had a cent, a penny for every journalist who wants to be a novelist, we'd all be rich, right? So, yeah, so I was always attending either writing classes in the evenings. I was writing something. I think at that point, I was running a writing group, and I was fairly seriously working on a novel, and I think I was on about draft three of a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this ad. I think it was GameIndustry.biz did an article about a writing for games course in with an organisation called the Arbonne Foundation, which is a really highly respected writing foundation that does writing courses across all sorts of disciplines. So it can be playwriting, writing for radio, writing biographies, all sorts of things, poetry, everything. And they have been bequeathed houses from well-known authors. I was at the Ted Hughes and Sylvia Plath house, which is up in Yorkshire. And the tutors were David Varela and John Ingold of Inkle Games. You might know Heaven's Vault and 80 Days. So he was one of the tutors. And then Rihanna Pratchett was a guest tutor.
Yes.
And she came on for an evening. So I saw that, and I like going on writing retreats, and I write about games. And so I was like, oh, this is like kind of a cool intersection of things that I enjoy. Yeah, so I signed up for that, and basically that kind of changed everything, kind of changed my perspective and my focus, because I thought, oh, this is something I can really do, and I really enjoyed the it was a residential week
Oh man.
up there. And from listening to the tutors and their journeys, I picked out the common threads were that they'd done lots of different kinds of writing. So Rihanna started as a journalist, and then she studied theatre and, sort of to hone her craft. And David was the same, who's kind of a copywriter. And then, and they'd all written sort of like, there were like short stories and a couple of radio plays. So I went home and I was like, okay, I'm going to, start looking at interactive fiction and writing a game in ink. And then I did a course on writing for radio. So I wrote a radio play off the back of that, and I produced it myself with a couple of friends. And it was put on at the local literary festival. And then I went to a game jam, and that's where I met Claire, and that's where Before I Forget began. And yeah, and then it's just kind of, grown from there. And Before I Forget has kind of, it's touched a chord with people, which means that even though it's not finished yet, it's had quite a lot of good coverage, and, people have really enjoyed the demo. And so that's where I am now. Yeah, and then I really wanted to do something for Windrush, as it's part of my heritage. And so I was thinking, oh, shall I write a short story? What shall I do? And then I was like, oh, like I could do a game, an interactive fiction game that's perhaps illustrated or something, to keep it quite simple and manageable. And so there's a friend of mine who used to work at PlayStation, and he writes comics. So I said, and he's I was like, "You're from the Caribbean heritage, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm St. Kitts and Barbados." And I was like, "Okay, I want to do this thing. I've got this idea for a game. Do you want to like be a co-writer?" And so that's where that began, basically. Yeah.
Man, that's a wonderful journey. Actually, I wish there was more opportunities for just lots of career paths. Like, hey, let's all get together as a group. Let's just like all sit down and hone our crafts in a community
Yeah.
collective. I see artists doing it like sketch groups, like on a small scale. But I would love if there was like, hey, design retreat. Let's all go to, Corey's house.
Yeah.
He's gonna give us 2 weeks to just crash
Yeah.
on couches and talk games. Like that'd be dope.
It's just going to turn into a street
Yeah,
fighter
yeah, yeah.
tournament.
Well, is there any high level goals that you hope your game development opens up for you, or like any new avenues further than game development that you're looking to explore? Because you did mention like there's some diversity. Like, oh, I noticed they all were doing different things. So maybe like first stop games, next stop movies. I guess, are there any other writing goals?
Oh my God, I'd love to write a movie. I mean, I have talked to a writer friend of mine who's also a games journalist, and he's on his third novel at the moment.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and we have discussed like writing a Netflix show or whatever the latest iteration of streaming TV will be together. But yeah, I think it's just that's one of the good things about being a writer, right? Is that there's just so many avenues you can take that. So yeah, I'd like to explore all of those avenues if possible. Yeah, I'm a huge movie buff, so to write a film would be amazing. But yeah, we'll see. I think I'll concentrate on moving to Sweden
Oh.
at the moment and getting before I forget finished.
It's like, Larry, I got a couple other more immediate things that I'm focused on. No,
Yeah.
well, I can't wait to see what you get your hands on there. Hopefully, we'll keep in great touch because, obviously NDA stuff you can't say ahead of time. But when you can, like, Larry, it's big.
Yeah.
Here's what I've been working on.
Yeah.
This is the part I
Like,
handcrafted.
Larry,
Please.
you're gonna love it.
Oh, man, I can't wait. So I don't want to take your spotlight. I'll take 10 seconds to just say I love any sort of game that has story, character growth, and development.
Yeah.
I prefer games that take me on an adventure, usually the hero's journey, blah, blah, blah. But I love that over like a fighting game or action game alone, right?
Yeah.
Like strategy game alone. Like I love Gone Home. I love like God of War 4 and how they take it now. I love those types of games. And so I double down on my respect for people who bring that into game development, for writers who come to the table and like, look, I get it. You have a solid idea for like characters and why all these conflicts are happening, but let me sew that together. Let me really put some breath into this experience. I promise you, your customers will like it. So I will always work with a good writer.
Yeah.
100%. So I'm vouching for you and people like you who do games
That's
writing.
good to
Please
know.
come make these games awesome.
Yeah.
I'm tired of shit translation
Oh,
dialogue that
thank
makes
you.
me upset. Hell nah. That's not dialogue.
You really mean
That's not a line. That's cheap.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's very challenging, especially. I feel like games writing, you have to write a lot more dialogue than other mediums because of these options that the players have to take, and you got to have different scenarios that you got to think about, and it's just a lot of writing that you got to do that some people might not even get to, right? And at least in the bigger AAA franchises, they're moving more away from a singular kind of God of War. I feel like the Sony camp is kind of holding the torch for a single player narrative, right? Just from beginning to end, you play the hero and here's the story, right? I feel like it's kind of crawling back, but for a while, it felt like a lot of just open world, player's choice, dialogue second, story third type of thing, right? What's your personal feelings about that?
Well, I think there's space for both, or all of the, all those sort of, because I suppose you have the sort of Telltale, which are, tightly written stories, but are very good at giving the illusion of choice and, getting that emotional investment through the sheer sort of craft of the choices they give you. They're brilliant games for sort of studying in that respect. But in my personal choice, I mean, yeah, no, well, sometimes, yes, because I do like the Uncharted. I love the Uncharted games. They're just so beautifully written, and they give that. We've always been searching for that game that feels like a movie, and Naughty Dog gives us that. They did that perfectly, and it's a sheer joy to play in that respect, because it's like that sort of that dream that gamers have always had, to like play a game that feels like a movie. And I do prefer that to more open world games. I think it's hard to create a satisfying story experience in an open world. That's a real challenge, and I think it's one that narrative designers are, they're having a good go at it. Like, how do we do this? We have to crack this nut, because it's one of the things that really sets us apart from films. Is this thing we can do. Give an open world where the player can do whatever they want, but also somehow put a narrative in there that feels satisfying and not tacked on or extraneous. It's a challenge, but what's great about games is there's space for all of those things. There's space for everything, from the game I'm writing, which is extremely linear, there's no choice. The sort of gone home type games, with very minimal gameplay mechanics, that focuses purely on story, to everything beyond that, everything in between that, and I don't know, Skyrim or something, those vast experiences. But I think story is still really important. I think the one heartening thing for a narrative designer, writer, is that story remains important, because you have to do something with the graphics have to be there for some reason. There's a story, because the graphics are so beautiful now, there has to be a story there somewhere, doesn't there? You have to,
you can say distractions.
fill out
I know
that
you guys
world
are thinking distractions.
Yeah.
Writers and designers, that distraction that supports what we're doing. Graphics.